Hi everyone and welcome back to Audio Fixation, the friendliest audio channel on YouTube. It's absolutely freezing here in Nottingham at the moment. Still, it's a great excuse for me to stay indoors, listen to some great music and, of course, make a few new audio fixation videos. So we've established that most people do most of their music listening on the go, using their smartphone as their primary music source. I've done 2 videos on how to optimize the sound quality from your mobile, whether you're using an Android device or an iPhone. But those videos had one thing in common: the need for lots of extra kit, such as dongles or external DACs. And whilst some of that kit can truly elevate your listening experience, there are times when you want to just maximize your portability options. So no dongle, no DAC, just your phone and some nice IEMs. Is such a thing even possible in 2021? Well, not if you have a newer iPhone, seeing as none of them from 2016 onwards actually feature a headphone jack. So we have to turn our attention to the Android world, but even then, our choice is extremely limited, as most mid-range and premium Android phones have done away with the headphone jack as well. Let's face it, headphone jacks on phones have predominantly become a budget phone feature, really, and I'm sure it won't be long before even those cheap handsets start doing away with it either. Thankfully, however, there is one manufacturer that still caters to the audio enthusiast crowd in the premium sector, and that is none other than the inventor of portable audio, Sony. Now, Sony phones are definitely niche products, ignored on the whole by the vast majority of smartphone buyers. And that's such a shame, because I think that their latest premium handset, the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III, is not only a great phone for the audiophile, but a great phone, full stop. There's no argument over the fact that the Xperia 1 Mark III, the 2021 iteration of Sony's flagship phone, looks and feels absolutely premium. Its understated industrial design is classy whilst remaining surprisingly ergonomic. You will immediately be struck by how tall and narrow it is, as it features an unusual 21:9 aspect ratio screen. That does mean that it's much easier to handle despite having a large and beautiful 6.5-inch 4K 120 frames per second OLED panel. That screen really is gorgeous, capable of HDR playback with no irritating notch or punch hole to interrupt your viewing pleasure. Yes, there are some very slim top and bottom bezels, but I'll take those over a notch any day of the week. The internal hardware specs are equally impressive. There's a Snapdragon 888 processor, the latest one, backed up by a beastly 12 gigs of RAM, and either 256 or, as I have in my phone, 512 gigabytes of internal fast UFS 3 storage. Camera enthusiasts will enjoy the quadruple lens setup, featuring 2 separate telephoto zoom lengths, all backed by Sony's enthusiast-focused camera software and very natural image processing. But hey, this is audio fixation, not MKBHD, I wish. So you came here to find out why the Xperia 1 Mark III is the audiophile phone of choice, not to get dizzy over tech specs. So let's talk about audio. Now, this phone has 2 old school features that make it particularly suited to audio geeks like all of you lot. So firstly, we have the humble 3.5mm jack. No, it doesn't have a dedicated ESS DAC like the sadly obsolete LG phones of yesteryear, but the DAC is capable of high-res file decoding, and the headphone amp, whilst not powerful, does sound clean and extremely neutral with plenty of detail retrieval. So no, this output is not going to drive your Sundaras very well, but it sounds spectacular with any of the IEMs that I own, including my best pair, the Shure SE846. I'm so happy with the headphone output of the 1 Mark III that I don't even bother with an external DAC when I'm using just IEMs with this phone. The other feature that makes this such a good audiophile phone is another old school one: removable storage. Yes, it's another feature which used to be pretty commonplace on all Android phones. In fact, depending on the size of your library, you might not even need an expandable memory card, particularly if you go for the 512GB version of the phone like I have here. Transferring files to the internal storage is fast and easy via the USB-C connector, and of course you can also use all that storage as a repository for offline Tidal and Qobuz lossless files. Let's talk software next. So the Xperia does come loaded with Sony's own Walkman software, but I personally don't find it the best to use. So for offline listening, I prefer that brilliant bit of software which I won't stop going on about, USB Audio Player Pro, or UAPP. Now UAPP can play all your own FLAC files offline, and it also has the ability to stream directly via Tidal and Qobuz. As well as featuring a neat and intuitive interface and a great way to access your offline files, UAPP has a secret weapon. It allows you to bypass that nasty habit that the Android system has of resampling every single file to 48 kHz sample rate and introducing crackly digital noise in the process. Instead, UAPP can access either the internal high-res DAC like you have here on the Xperia 1 Mark III, or an external USB DAC directly, allowing bit-perfect output. And I have to say, it sounds phenomenal with none of those digital nasties. Sometimes, however, you just want to use streaming services through their native app, be it Tidal, Spotify or Apple Music. There is a workaround which seems to improve the sound. If you go into the sound settings on the Xperia, you'll see an option to toggle Sony's proprietary DSEE or upscaling technology or whatever it is, and that magically seems to get rid of the resampling noise. Now I'm not sure whether what you're getting is bit perfect, but it sounds amazing, so I don't really care. However, and you knew there was a but coming, no phone is perfect, and the Xperia 1 Mark III does come with a few compromises. So first of all, the Xperia 1 Mark III packs a 4500 mAh battery, which sounds plenty beefy enough, but that gorgeous 120Hz 4K panel does sap the battery quite quickly, particularly if you're doing intensive stuff like gaming or taking lots of pics or videos. Now, whilst the rear cameras on the Xperia 1 Mark III are excellent, the front-facing camera continues to be a bit of an abomination, with washed out, grainy pics in all but the most ideal lighting conditions. This can make video calling a bit hit and miss. And talking about imaging, whilst the hardware is excellent, the Sony software doesn't feature as much computational magic as Apple, Samsung and Google's latest offerings. That means that in order to get the best out of the camera, you'll have to roll your sleeves up and wade into the camera's manual settings. I love the natural colours and lack of over-sharpening you get in the 1 Mark III snaps. However, if you are used to the heavily processed, contrasty and saturated photos from most smartphones, you might find the Sony's pics disappointing. Now, Sony has traditionally been one of the slower manufacturers to push security updates and major Android system upgrades to even their most expensive flagship models. That does make me nervous, as Sony's track record hasn't exactly been great so far. And finally, and the most important drawback, is that this thing doesn't come cheap. In the UK, the base 256GB model is listed at £1,200, putting it firmly in the superphone category. That really is a ridiculous amount of money to pay for a phone, full stop, but I would argue that it deserves its place in that price bracket as much as the iPhone 13 Pro Max or the Samsung S21 Ultra do. However, with very little brand recognition in the smartphone space, not many users are going to plump for the Sony at that price. The final thing to mention is the global availability of these phones is limited. So for example, in India, that's the most notable large territory I can bring to mind, you don't get Xperia. So those are the downsides, and if you can live with those compromises, I would argue that the Xperia 1 Mark III really is an excellent phone and perfect for audiophiles, and I've thoroughly enjoyed using mine. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe until then, bye for now.